All right, Sandy, whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon. I am Sandy Damon. I am the Adult Event Coordinator for the Pine Bush Area Public Library. Today, we have our guest, Deb Carr from Mosquito Joe, who is going to discuss with us vector-borne disease and mosquitoes and ticks. Deb.
Thanks very much, Sandy. I appreciate the introduction and you offering me this opportunity to speak with you. How many of you have ever felt like this? With a giant mosquito in the middle of the summer, feels like they can carry you away. I often feel that way. So hopefully we'll share some tips on how to protect yourself from these mosquitoes as well as other insects. Okay. Mosquitoes are one of the most dangerous organisms on the planet. Due to their ability to kill humans, they kill more than 1 million humans per year, and that's basically malaria, mostly in Africa. There are 3,000 different species of mosquitoes, 168 of which are known to be in the United States, and only 12 of those carry disease, about 12. Okay. And the species has been around for millions of years. Let me back up. This is bottle cap. This is a bottle cap. How many eggs do you think a mosquito can lay in one bottle cap?
One mosquito?
One mosquito.
1,000.
1,000?
Yeah, about 1,000.
Okay, so good guess. That's a little high. It's only about 300 in one bottle cap. Only 300 eggs in this bottle cap. But the eggs develop into adults in the course of about a week, 7 to 8 days. Okay, they need stagnant water to develop as well as heat. And they develop into adults from their prior stages, eggs, larvae, and pupae. And the eggs can actually lay dormant for many months, including over the winter. So in the fall, when the mosquitoes lay their final eggs, those eggs can lay dormant for the full winter. Then come spring, it rains, it gets warm, and they will hatch.
Do they have to be in the water or near water to hatch?
They will hatch from the water, yes. So
Okay.
they lay, exactly, yeah. Yep. Only the female mosquito bites, and she lives a few weeks to a couple of months. Okay, so she's only living a couple of months. They feed on us because they need a blood meal to reproduce. That's why they bite, so that they may reproduce. Males, on the other hand, live only 1 to 2 weeks. Okay, and their sole purpose is to mate with the female. That's okay. A mosquito's wings beats about 500 times per second, and that's what creates that buzzing sound you hear. Do you know mosquitoes? You hear them buzz? So that's what creates that sound. They're attracted to bright, dark colors. They're not repelled by light colors, but they are attracted to bright and dark colors. So try not to wear bright, dark colors when you're outside. And what that you are signaling to them that you are there and available for a meal is the carbon dioxide that we exhale. So that's what they're attracted to. That's they kind of hone in on that, and they fly to their source of choice based on the carbon dioxide. Some people are mosquito magnets, and I don't know what it is about their carbon dioxide that they're attracted to, but they do certainly tend to gravitate to certain people. And the mosquito can detect the carbon dioxide from about 75 feet away. Okay. But they are not strong flyers. They fly about 1 to 1.5 miles per hour, and they can't go more than 1 to 2 miles. Many of them only go about 100 yards. And they typically don't bite when the temperatures fall below 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so that's why in the spring it gets warm. You start seeing them and they bite. Now, mosquito saliva lubricates their proboscis. That's the thing that comes off their head, which is what goes into your skin. The saliva is actually what causes the bump that you get and the itching from the bite. And most mosquitoes are very active beginning at dusk, but one species is most active between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. So that's how we determine what type of mosquito it is, often by where they're biting you on your body and what time of day they're out. This is not a mosquito. I know you can't see it on camera, but this is not a mosquito. So if you see a flying insect that's big, it looks almost like a daddy long legs with wings, not a mosquito. Okay, that's a crane fly. And you can see the comparison of a crane fly to a mosquito in terms of the size. The crane fly is much larger, mosquito is smaller. That crane fly is also known as a mosquito hawk, but they do not bite. So they're not going to bite you, they're not going to bother you. You see them in the early spring oftentimes. Yeah. Yeah, and they're not mosquitoes, okay? So, the mosquito-borne diseases that people are concerned about: malaria, West Nile virus, Eastern equine encephalitis. West Nile and EEE have been diagnosed around here, as well as some cases of Zika. Chikungunya, not so much around here. Dog heartworm, dengue, of which has been increasing in Florida recently. You may have read about that. And as well as yellow fever is another disease that we want to protect against. So how do we keep mosquitoes at bay? You want to eliminate their breeding grounds and their hiding places. So adults prefer shady, humid areas away from sunlight and predators. So they're going to be in your shrubs, on the trees, on the undersides of leaves. So they hang out in those areas where they're covered. Shrubs, dense vegetation, under decks and patios, in the eaves. So you want to make sure you're keeping your gutters clean, eliminating leaf litter by cleaning around your lawn, the perimeter of the property, edges, mow your tall grass, keep your lawn short. If you get a delivery of mulch or topsoil, you will often see a big group of mosquitoes hatching from that. They do lay eggs in that as well. One trick, if you're sitting outside, is to use a fan. Like I mentioned before, they are not strong flyers. So if you use a fan, they're not really able to fly against that, and that will help keep them away while you're outside. The key is eliminating standing water. So clogged gutters, ditches, make sure you're not over irrigating your lawn. After heavy rains and the pools gather, mosquitoes lay eggs there. Old tires, if you have a tire swing, make sure that you drill holes in it so that the water can drain out. Kids' toys, wading pools. This is my grandson Patrick, who is tipping and tossing, so you want to make sure you tip and toss your water. He knows all about that. Bird baths, pet bowls, saucers for planters, wheelbarrows, buckets, anything, anywhere water can collect. Pay particular attention to underneath your deck. There are things that people store there, piles of grass, leaves. That's where they'll all gather, and you won't even know it. You'll say, I've cleaned my yard, but underneath the deck, if there's a bucket, an old toy, anything like that, they'll gather there. So again, just some common sources where you want to eliminate. If you have a boat, somebody has a boat, uncovered boats, swimming pool covers, that type of thing. So you want to make sure that you're eliminating the water off of the top of all these areas. Okay, and source reduction is key. So you can't see that on video, but thousands of larvae in the little pond area. Make sure we keep stagnant water away. So mosquitoes versus gnats. Do you know the difference between mosquitoes and gnats? And their bite is different, right? So many gnats don't bite, but one species that does is a black fly. And some swarm around your head in groups, and some will tend to follow you. As you're walking and they follow you, those are generally gnats. They don't make a buzzing sound. Where we talked about the buzzing for the mosquitoes, gnats don't buzz. They live in different areas. They're going to live in your soil, moist soil. They like those fungusy, wet areas, as opposed to the shrubs and bushes and trees where the mosquitoes are living. They don't have a proboscis, but their bite is very different, and it's more painful. They are only out during the day and evening. They're not out at night like some of the mosquitoes are. So the mosquito bites cause flat, itchy bumps on the surface. That's the picture you see on the left, where gnats are going to leave red bumps where you see darker blood-clotted type spots that looks like you've been pricked by something sharp. And that's because they have these microscopic mouth cutters. That's how they bite you, as opposed to with the proboscis entering your skin.
Nightmares?
I did dream about mosquitoes last night, in fact. Okay. Have you heard about the genetically modified mosquito project that they're doing in Florida? Okay, so they're trying to eliminate mosquitoes, particularly in the Florida Keys. There's been a lot, I mentioned the dengue down there, not that it's a lot, but there are increased cases, and there's these mosquitoes that they're really trying to eliminate. One company has genetically modified the male mosquito to introduce a gene that kills the female offspring before they develop. So because the females are the ones that are biting, if we kill off the females, it will decrease the mosquito population. So they just released a number of them in the Keys as a test, and they'll be looking at doing that in other countries and areas as well. I've read about plants that repel mosquitoes. It's difficult to say that the plants will repel mosquitoes because the scent doesn't travel very far, but there are scents that will repel mosquitoes, and you can basically use their essential oils to create a repellent. If you mix it with something like an almond oil, some type of carrier oil, and apply it to your skin, it does act somewhat as a repellent, and some of those things include basil, bee balm, catnip, citronella, floss flower, garlic, lavender, lemon balm, lemongrass, marigold, peppermint, rosemary, sage, scented geranium, and pennyroyal. So those are some scents that you can create repellents with if you chose. So let's talk about ticks. Okay. Again, they range in size from like the period at the end of a sentence, poppy seed size, up to maybe a few millimeters, and then when they fill up, certainly they get bigger. But ticks can carry pathogens for 10 human diseases, most notably Lyme disease, which we're very familiar with, and they spread illness that causes symptoms such as fever, headache, chills, and muscle aches. And ticks are the most efficient carriers of disease because they attach firmly to your skin. They feed slowly, and they can go unnoticed for long periods of time. Right? So we don't always know that we're being fed on by the ticks. And Lyme is the most common vector-borne disease spread by ticks in the United States. Ticks start to appear when the ground temperature is about 45 degrees Fahrenheit, and they can lay up to 3,000 eggs at a time. Okay. They sit on the tips of the grass and shrubs, which is called questing, and they wait for a host to walk by. So if a human or an animal passes by them, they will quickly crawl onto you. And contrary to popular belief, they don't jump and they can't fly. But they do sit on the tips of the grass and wait for somebody to walk by. And they host on mammals, birds, reptiles, and amphibians. We often think about deer, right? That deer carry them. Probably even more common are mice. So through the fields, mice are carrying them and dropping them in the yard. Squirrels, so all of these types of animals. And based on the size of their, the life cycle, life stage, that's what host animal they gravitate towards. Okay. So to keep your ticks at bay, you want to make sure you're keeping your grass mowed and trees trimmed, wood piles away from the house. Keep your pets out of thickly wooded areas. Move swing sets, sandboxes, play sets away from the wood line of your property. So where the kids are playing, you don't want them to be too close to the perimeter of the property where the ticks are gravitating. Wear long sleeves and pants. When walking in grassy areas, light colors are best, not because they're repelled by the light colors, but because you can then see the ticks to remove them. And when you go inside after being out in the yard, working in the yard, or hiking, whatever you might be doing, remove your shoes, wash all your clothing, or at least put it in the dryer. The high heat will kill the ticks, so you can put it in the dryer to kill them promptly, and then check yourself, your pets, and your kids for ticks upon coming inside. Okay, so checking for ticks. Ticks can go detected, like I said, for long periods of time and stay attached for 3 to 10 days, depending on what type of tick and their life stage. Okay, and they prefer warm, dark areas like armpits, behind your knees, the groin area, scalp underneath your hair, belly button. So those are all areas that you want to be checking. And on your dog, check for them in and around their ears, their eyelids, under their collar. That's where I have found ticks. Around their tail, between their back legs, and under the front legs, and between their toes. Okay, so checking between their toes is important. So to remove a tick that's embedded, use fine-tipped tweezers. You want to make sure you're grabbing as close to the skin surface as possible and pull with steady pressure straight out. After removing the tick, you would clean the area with either alcohol or soap and water. Dispose of the tick. Don't ever crush it between your fingers because you don't want that blood to come out that has whatever they've got in it. I get rid of mine by either putting it in a little container of alcohol, which kills them, or flushing them down the toilet. If the head breaks off and stays in the skin, try to remove it. Clean your skin with rubbing alcohol first. You can use a sterile needle to try to dig the head out. If a small piece of the head remains, it's okay, your skin will shed it, but if a large piece of the head remains, you might want to get a doctor to take a look at it and take it out. If the tick is removed within 24 hours, the chance of contracting Lyme is greatly reduced. Early symptoms of Lyme disease that appear within 3 to 30 days include fever, chills, headache, muscle and joint aches. Swollen lymph nodes might appear instead of a rash. And a rash appears in about 70 to 80% of those infected with Lyme. It's not always a bullseye rash, so that's important to keep in mind. We often hear about a bullseye rash, but it's not always the bullseye rash. Okay. Later signs and symptoms of Lyme that could appear months after a tick bite: severe headaches and neck stiffness, other types of rashes, facial palsy, arthritis with severe joint pain and swelling, heart palpitations or irregular heartbeat, dizziness, shortness of breath, nerve pain, shooting pain, and numbness in your hands and feet. So you get some severe symptoms. You certainly want to, if you've had a tick that you believe has been embedded for more than 24 hours, seek medical treatment. They can treat you prophylactically with antibiotics, most commonly doxycycline. But not all bugs are bad, right? There are some very beneficial insects. These are among them. Certain insects are beneficial because they prey on or parasitize other insects and act as pollinators, which we know of plants. So bees, praying mantis, ladybugs, butterflies, lacewings, dragonflies, earthworms, ground beetles, spiders, all good insects. So we don't want to kill all insects, just those nasty mosquitoes and ticks and gnats. Dragonflies are one of 2 insects, also the damselfly, that eat mosquitoes. So those are particularly beneficial. You know, if you have dragonflies, they eat the mosquitoes, so you want to keep them around. And I just wanted to mention a word about cicadas, because this is the year the cicadas are coming out. Has anybody seen any cicadas as yet? I haven't yet either, but I hope to. It's the brood X cicada from the 17-year cycle. They emerge from the ground as nymphs when the ground temperature reaches 64 degrees, which is generally when the air temperature is about 80 degrees for 3 days, and then we have a heavy rain. The nymphs will last 6 to 8 weeks, and then they shed their exoskeleton. And their sole purpose is to find another mate to reproduce for the next 17-year cycle. So that's their purpose. They're not harmful, they don't bite, but they are loud. They make the sound of 90 to 100 decibels, which is like the sound of a lawnmower at about a distance of 3 feet. So they are loud.
Mating call I heard on TV.
I don't know what it is, but I'm sure they do have a mating call. Yeah, they do, yeah. Birds feed on them. They might do some damage to younger trees, but they also serve to prune trees, which is a benefit of them. For the 17 years that they're underground, they're getting their nutrition by sucking on the roots of the trees. And then they come out, and they are about 2.5 inches long with a wingspan of about 3 inches. So they're fairly sizable, right? And you can have as many as 1.5 million per acre. Right. So this is just a picture, which you can't see, but a picture of a cicada shedding its exoskeleton, and then all of the exoskeletons on the ground. So I just thought that I'd end on that. Right.
So they have no purpose.
Just to reproduce. So they reproduce, come out every 17 years, and there are cicadas that are on other cycles, a 10-year cycle, annual. So there are some annual cicadas as well. But you know, these are not harmful. You know, people dread them because they do make very, very loud noises, and they can be annoying for a few weeks. But that, you know, they don't do a lot of damage.
17 years ago, New Paltz was just loaded. You could see them all on the road, hanging on trees.
Yeah.
I'm going to go up that road
And see if they're there. I would love to see them. And actually, you know, the Northeast and Midwest is the area that they're in. And I'm just not sure how far north they come. It's more in the Pennsylvania, a little south of here. But they are.
Here.
Yeah. I've not seen them to the extent of 1.5 million per acre, and I don't know that I would want to, but I'd like to see a few. So.
You know, you spoke about the mosquitoes in Florida,
Mm-hmm.
in the Keys. I grew up in Florida, and every spring leading into summer, I don't know if it was the state or the counties, would send trucks out to spray, which was awful.
Mm-hmm.
But they would go in and out of all the roads and spray this horrible smelling repellent, or, and so it would be nice if they could find something to take care
Yeah.
of them. The mosquitoes are awful in Florida.
Yeah, and they do spray up, not, I don't think they spray up here, but I know in Rockland they do spray. Certain counties in New York as well that they are spraying, so.
Deb, thank you so much for coming
you,
and
thank you,
explaining
Sandy.
all
I
of this to us.
appreciate it.
Thank
I
you very,
appreciate
very
it.
informative.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure, thanks for having me.
Oh, you're quite welcome.